Welcome to the In Other News podcast at dailynewscollective.com, the poor man's Drudge Report, providing breaking news and the news from actual sources, research, and statistics that the establishment narrative doesn't want the average citizen to devour. Before I launch into news you can use, I just wanted to make a point pertaining to the ongoing technocratic World Economic Forum and the United Nations plan to annihilate billions of humans and enslave us all in digital prisons by any scheming means necessary. We have to begin to openly talk about this and stop hiding behind the flimsy excuses people use every day to deny what they absolutely know is true, and it is of the highest priority. Not the war in Ukraine, not police brutality or racism, not any narrative that ultimately divides us. A country club of billionaires run by geriatric, dementia-riddled sociopaths, many of whom made the decision to never have children, despise the family, and embrace the cruel joke of Marxism and the nightmare of communism. Their narcissism and isolation from cold, hard reality will likely, in the very near future, morph into an outcome of temporary carnage between their side and the rest of humanity that will eventually unveil decades of DARPA-level technology that's remained hidden by this eugenics-obsessed technocratic cult. Humanity, utilizing the unyielding spirit of liberty, will eventually seize this hidden technology, which includes life extension, free energy, and robotics, to do the bidding of the future of space-age humanity. But humanity must do its part now, turn the corner and refuse these handlers from continuing to control our corrupt institutions. And those institutions must be restored rather than torn down to meet the technocrats' decades of planning. The human race can only do this if it turns toward the ethical spark instilled in every one of us through eons of DNA, oddly enough from our ancestors, better known as family. This, of course, may be incredibly obvious to many of you, but that is a very positive sign. Here's what we have for you at the In Other News podcast for January 2nd, 2023. Outgoing House Republican from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger, expressed his opinion on running for president in 2024.
It would be fun to stand on a stage with Donald Trump and actually tell the truth, because when he's on a stage, it's nothing but lies that come out.
This after the January 6th committee retracted the subpoena they had created for Donald Trump because they had no evidence. On top of that, it was recently revealed that Ray Epps, the orchestrator of the events on January 6th, who has faced no arrest or has not been placed in prison with the other J6 defendants, said in a text message to his nephew where he wrote, "I also orchestrated it." Ray Epps claiming to absolutely have orchestrated January 6th and that he had helped people get in there.
I find it odd that you all are defending one of the people who assaulted the Capitol.
Defending who?
Ray Epps.
I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden is claiming that the economy couldn't be any better and that things are on the up and up for America. But the truth is, the Dow incurred the worst year since 2008, the NASDAQ incurred the worst year ever, and if you add in the bonds, it's the worst year since 1871. Not to mention the skyrocketing crossings at the southern border, skyrocketing crime, gas prices. Gateway Pundit reporting that U.S. stocks ended lower Friday, booking their worst annual losses since 2008 as tax loss harvesting, along with anxieties about the outlook for corporate profits and the U.S. consumer, took their toll. All three major benchmarks suffering their worst year since 2008 based on percentage declines. The Dow dropped 8.8% in 2022, while the S&P 500 tumbled 19.4%, and the technology-heavy NASDAQ plunged 33.1%. Stocks and bonds have been crushed this year as the Federal Reserve raised its benchmark interest rate more aggressively than many had expected, as it sought to crush the worst inflation in 4 decades. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi, on her way out as House Speaker, raised the salary cap for House staffers to $212,100, while Bidenflation is destroying American prosperity. As home sales are down 35% from last year, more than a third of last year's sales are gone. Kevin McCarthy still lacks the votes to win speakership of the House. At least 8 conservatives want a radical departure of the status quo. The vote is tomorrow. McCarthy is seen as another cog in the wheel of the deep state establishment, and like Mitch McConnell, will vote for that establishment. After Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky announced a continuation of a partnership with the investment management company BlackRock, he announced that he would participate in next month's World Economic Forum in Davos. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian church, the only church allowed to continue to operate in Ukraine's new democracy, celebrated the birthday of Nazi collaborator and national hero Stephen Bandera. Ukrainian General Zaluzny said that God himself is on the side of the neo-Nazi ultranationalists. Siddharth Kara spoke recently on the Joe Rogan podcast about the inhumane conditions in the DRC's cobalt mines. The evidence is forcing CEOs to explain their actions.
There's not supposed to be one here. That's what the story is told at the top of the chain. This mine, and I can name it, it's called Shabara. There's not supposed to be one artisanal miner here, according to the consumer-facing tech companies and EV companies buying this cobalt. Lo and behold, I walk into this place, and this is what I see. There's more than 15,000 human beings crammed into that pit.
As we enter 2023, thought crimes have become a target for punishment. Speech has been muzzled. Kill switches are aimed to turn off more than just your car. And currency went digital. 2022 saw major crimes such as robberies and aggravated assaults rise in the first 6 months compared to the same period in 2021, as crime explodes in LA, Chicago, Miami, New Orleans, and Philadelphia. Thanks for listening to the Other News podcast at dailynewscollective.com, providing breaking news and the news from actual sources, research, and statistics the establishment narrative doesn't want the average citizen to devour. Thanks for listening. I'm John Bound at dailynewscollective.com.